Welcome to the Pursuit Chronicles, where tales of adventure, discovery, and passion unfold through every inspiring journey. The desert night was alive with whispers, the rustle of creosote bushes, the distant howl of a coyote, and the faint hum of drones patrolling the U.S.-Mexico border. Elena Marquez crouched behind a boulder, her breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Her Border Patrol uniform clung to her skin, damp with sweat despite the cool April air of 2025. The San Diego sector was her domain, a 60-mile stretch of rugged terrain where smugglers, migrants, and predators played a deadly game of cat and mouse. Tonight she was hunting a different kind of prey. "Marquez, you copy?" The voice crackled through her earpiece, belonging to her partner, Javier Ruiz. He was positioned a quarter-mile east, his scope trained on the arroyo, where their intels suggested a crossing would happen. "Copy," Elena whispered, adjusting her night vision goggles. The green-tinted world revealed nothing but shadows and scrub. "Anything on your end?" "Negative." But the tip was solid. "They're coming." Elena trusted Javier's instincts. They'd been partners for 3 years, weathering everything, from cartel shootouts to bureaucratic red tape. The tip had come from a confidential informant, a former coyote who'd turned after his sister vanished into the same networks they were chasing. Human trafficking. Not the kind that made headlines with shipping containers or mass abductions, but a quieter, more insidious operation. Young women, mostly, lured with promises of jobs in the U.S. Nannies, waitresses, models, only to disappear into a web of exploitation. Sex trade, forced labor, sometimes worse. Elena's stomach churned at the thought. She shifted her weight, her fingers brushing the holstered Glock at her hip. This wasn't just another shift. It was personal. 7 years ago, her cousin Sophia had crossed the same border, chasing a modeling gig in Los Angeles. She was 19, bright-eyed, with dreams bigger than their small hometown in El Paso. Sophia never made it to L.A. The last trace was a grainy photo from a Tijuana bar. Her, smile forced, a man's hand on her shoulder. Elena had joined Border Patrol not long after, driven by a need to find answers, to prevent other Sophias from vanishing. She hadn't found her cousin, but she'd found purpose. Movement. Javier's voice snapped her back. 3 figures, 200 yards out, moving fast. Elena peered through her goggles. There they were, 2 women, one barely a teenager, stumbling through the brush, guided by a man in a dark hoodie. The coyote. Her pulse quickened. "Got eyes on them? Hold position!" The trio moved erratically, the women clutching each other, their steps faltering. The coyote barked something in Spanish, his gestures sharp. Elena's grip tightened on her radio. This wasn't a standard crossing. The women weren't carrying backpacks or water jugs like most migrants. They were dressed. In cheap dresses, their faces pale even in the green glow of her goggles. "Victims, not volunteers. Javier, call for backup. I'm moving in." Elena, wait. But she was already up, slipping through the shadows, her boots silent on the sandy ground. The coyote was distracted, scanning the horizon, unaware of the trap closing around him. Elena's team had been tracking this route for weeks, piecing together scraps of intel, a white van waiting on the U.S. side, a drop-off point near Otay Mesa, and a name whispered in fear, Cassandra Delgado. Cass, they called her, a ghost in the trafficking world, young but ruthless, her operation hidden behind a legitimate front, Delgado Immigration Services, a San Diego-based consultancy promising legal pathways to the American dream. Elena reached a low ridge, crouching again, now just 50 yards from the group. The younger woman, girl really, tripped, and the coyote grabbed her arm, yanking her up. Elena's jaw clenched. She could hear the girl's whimper, a sound that cut through the desert silence like a blade. The older woman tried to intervene, but the coyote shoved her back, his voice low but venomous. "Keep moving, or you're done." "Enough." Elena keyed her radio. Now. Floodlights blazed to life, cutting through the darkness. Javier and 3 other agents emerged from their positions, shouting commands in English and Spanish. "U.S. Border Patrol, hands up, get down!" The coyote froze, then bolted, sprinting toward the border fence. Elena was faster. She tackled him into the dirt, her knee pressing into his back as she cuffed his wrists. He cursed in Spanish, spitting sand, but she ignored him, her focus on the women. They were huddled together, trembling, their eyes wide with fear. The girl, no older than 15, clutched a tattered backpack, her cheeks streaked with tears. The older woman, maybe in her 20s, stared at Elena like she was a mirage. "Are we safe?" she whispered in Spanish. Elena softened her voice, holstering her weapon. "You're safe now. We're here to help." But safe was relative. As the agents secured the scene and backup arrived, Elena knew this was just the surface. The Coyote was a low-level player, a hired hand. The real target was Cas Delgado, and she was still out there, pulling strings from a distance. The San Diego Border Patrol Station was a hive of activity by dawn. The Coyote identified as Miguel Torres sat in an interrogation room, his bravado crumbling under Javier's relentless questioning. The women, Maria and Ana, were in a holding area, being interviewed by a victim advocate. Elena stood outside the observation window, arms crossed, watching Maria recount her story. The advocate's notes painted a grim picture. Maria, 24, from Honduras, had answered an online ad for a restaurant job in San Diego. Ana, 15, from Guatemala, had been promised a scholarship to a U.S. high school. Both were funneled through Delgado Immigration Services, complete with forged documents, and a consultant who met them in Tijuana. The consultant's description matched Cass, mid-20s, polished, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor, agent in charge Daniel Holt. "My office. Now." Holt's office was a shrine to his 20-year career. Plaques, photos with politicians, a framed flag from a joint operation with ICE. He was a gruff man, nearing retirement, with a reputation for results over sentiment. Elena respected him, but she didn't always trust him. Rumors of agents taking bribes to look the other way weren't new, and Holt's insistence on sticking to protocol sometimes felt like a shield. "Marquez," Holt said, not looking up from his tablet. "Good work last night. Torres is singing already. Says he's just a runner, gets paid per head. Claims he doesn't know the big players." "He's lying," Elena said flatly. "He mentioned Cas Delgado's name twice before we cuffed him." Holt's eyes flicked up, sharp. "Delgado's a ghost. No record, no prints, just whispers. You sure Torres isn't just tossing out a name to save his skin?" "I'm sure." Elena leaned forward. Maria and Ana confirmed it. "Delgado's people met them in Tijuana, gave them scripts to memorize for Border Patrol questions. This isn't some small-time coyote ring, sir. It's organized, funded, and crossing state lines. Maybe international," Holt sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're preaching to the choir, Marquez, but we need evidence, not theories. The brass is breathing down my neck for results, and the media's sniffing around. If we go after someone, like Delgado, without airtight proof, it'll blow up in our faces." "Then let me dig deeper," Elena said. "Give me a task force, access to the informant network, and a week. I'll find her." Holt studied her, his expression unreadable. "You're too close to this. Everyone knows about your cousin. I can't have you going rogue." "I'm not rogue," Elena snapped, then caught herself. "Sir, I'm the best shot you've got. I know the terrain, the players, and I won't stop until we cut this thing off at the head." He held her. Gaze, then nodded slowly. "1 week. You report to me directly. And Marquez, watch your back. People like Delgado don't stay hidden by being careless." Cassandra Delgado's office in downtown San Diego was a study in contrasts. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the Pacific, while the decor, sleek furniture, framed certificates, a photo of Cass shaking hands with a local congressman, screamed legitimacy. To the world, she was a rising star, a 26-year-old entrepreneur helping immigrants navigate the U.S. system. Her company, Delgado Immigration Services, had glowing reviews online, a polished website, and a waiting list of clients. But behind the facade, Cass ran a different business, one that thrived in the shadows. She leaned back in her leather chair, scrolling through an encrypted app on her phone. The app, custom-built by a hacker she'd recruited in Tijuana, tracked her shipments, the women and girls funneled through her network. Last night's loss stung. 2 girls, 1 coyote, and a van impounded by Border Patrol. A $50,000 hit, not counting the risk of exposure. She'd already sent word to her Tijuana contact, a former cartel enforcer named Raul, to tighten security on the next crossing. Her assistant, a nervous 20-year-old named Lily, knocked and entered. "Miss Delgado, your 10 a.m. is here, and, Raul called. He says the coyote's talking." Cass's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Thank you, Lily. Tell Raul I'll handle it. And send in the client." As Lily scurried out, Cass opened a drawer, retrieving a burner phone. She typed a single message. "Clean it up." Miguel Torres wouldn't see the inside of a courtroom. Her network had eyes everywhere, including inside the Border Patrol station. Loyalty was bought, fear was earned, and Cass excelled at both. She stood smoothing her tailored blazer and prepared to meet her client, a legitimate one, this time, seeking a work visa. The front was as important as the back end. Every legal case she won bolstered her cover, and every dollar she laundered through her consultancy funded the real operation. But as she greeted the client with a practiced smile, her mind was elsewhere, calculating the next move. Border Patrol was getting too close, and one name kept surfacing in her intel: Elena Marquez. Cass had heard of Marquez, the agent with a vendetta, the one who wouldn't let go. She'd even seen a photo pulled from a hacked database: dark hair, fierce eyes, a scar on her left cheek from a bar fight in her rookie days. Marquez was a problem, but Cass thrived on problems. She'd built her empire from nothing, clawing her way out of a Tijuana slum, learning the trade from men who underestimated her. She wasn't just a trafficker, she was a survivor, and survivors didn't lose. Elena spent the afternoon poring over case files, cross-referencing names and dates. Maria and Anna's statements were gold, details about meeting points, phone numbers, even a description of Cass's signature perfume, something floral and expensive. But the files also revealed a pattern. Delgado's operation wasn't just about moving people. It was a pipeline feeding victims to clients across the U.S., casinos in Las Vegas, sweatshops in Chicago, brothels in Houston. The scale was staggering, and the profits were in the millions. By evening, Elena was at her desk, a cup of cold coffee beside her, when Javier burst in. "You need to see this." He tossed a tablet onto her desk, a grainy video queued up. It was security footage from the Otay Mesa crossing, timestamped 2 nights ago. A white van, the same one impounded last night, pulled up to a warehouse. A woman stepped out, her face obscured by a hood, but her movements were confident, purposeful. She handed a package to a man in a suit who slipped her an envelope in return. The exchange took 30 seconds, then she was gone. "That's her," Elena said, her voice tight. "Cass?" "We don't know that," Javier cautioned, "but the warehouse is owned by a shell company linked to Delgado Immigration Services. And the guy in the suit? He's a known fixer for a Vegas casino mogul." Elena's mind raced. Vegas. Money laundering. If Cass was moving cash through casinos, it explained how her operation stayed under the radar. "We need to follow the money," she said. "Get me everything on that casino and the fixer." Javier hesitated. "Elena, Holt's right. This is bigger than us. If we push too hard, we're painting targets on our backs." She met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm not stopping, Javi. Not when we're this close." He sighed, then nodded. "All right, but we do this smart, no cowboy stuff." As Javier left to pull the records, Elena's phone buzzed with a new email. No sender, no subject. Just a single line. "You're looking in the wrong places, Agent Marquez." Attached was a photo, Sofia, 7 years ago, in that Tijuana bar. But this copy was sharper, and the man's face was clear. Raul, Cass's enforcer. Elena's blood ran cold. They knew her name. They knew about Sofia. And they were watching. The desert outside San Diego was quiet again, but the game had changed. Cass Delgado sat in her office, staring at a live feed from a drone circling the border. Her network was tightening, her enemies closing in. But she wasn't afraid. She'd built this empire on risk, and she'd tear it down before letting it fall into Marquez's hands. Elena, meanwhile, clutched the photo of Sofia, her resolve hardening. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about survival, hers, Anna's, Maria's, and every soul caught in Cass's web. The hunt was on, and only one of them would walk away. Elena Marquez sat in her dimly lit apartment, the photo of Sofia staring back at her from the kitchen table. The email from the anonymous sender had shaken her, not because of the threat — threats were part of the job — but because of what it meant. Cass Delgado's network wasn't just watching her, they were taunting her, dangling Sofia's memory. Like bait. It was a power play, and Elena wasn't about to let it rattle her. She shoved the photo into a drawer and grabbed her keys. There was work to do. The San Diego Border Patrol station buzzed with the usual chaos. Agents filing reports, radios crackling, the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. Elena found Javier in the evidence locker, sorting through items. Seized from the white van impounded during the rescue of Maria and Anna. He held up a burner phone, its screen cracked but functional. "Tex pulled some data off this," he said, tossing her a printout. "Encrypted text, mostly, but one. Name keeps popping up, Raul Vargas." Elena's pulse quickened. Raul, the man in Sofia's photo, Cass's enforcer. What's he saying? Not much. Coordinates, times, vague stuff like package secured. But there's a meet scheduled tonight in Tijuana. A bar called El Cuervo. Sounds like a handoff. Elena scanned the printout, her mind racing. Tijuana was a labyrinth of safe houses, cartel fronts, and corrupt cops. Going across the border meant stepping into Cass's territory, where Border Patrol badges carried little weight. But if Raul was there, it was a chance to get closer to Cass. "We need to be there," she said. Javier raised an eyebrow. "We? Holt will have our heads if we cross without clearance. And you heard him? You're already on thin ice." "Holt doesn't need to know," Elena said, lowering her voice. "Not yet. We go in unofficial, blend in, get eyes on Raul. If it's a bust, we're just two Americans grabbing a drink. If it's real, we've got a lead." Javier hesitated, then sighed. "You're gonna get us fired? Or worse?" "Wouldn't be the first time I dragged you into trouble," she said with a half smile. He shook his head but grabbed his jacket. "Fine. But we're bringing backup. I'm not walking. Into TJ Blind." By dusk, Elena and Javier were in a beat-up Honda Civic, crossing the San Isidro border into Tijuana. Their backup, a wiry ex-Marine named Marcus Tate, followed in a separate car. Marcus was a freelancer, a private investigator who'd worked trafficking cases with Elena before. He wasn't on the Border Patrol payroll, which made him perfect for off-the-books ops like this. His only condition was a cut of any reward money, and Elena had promised him plenty if they nailed Cass. Tijuana's streets were a salt of neon and noise, taco stands, strip clubs, vendors hawking fake Rolexes. El Cuervo was tucked down a narrow alley, its sign a faded mural of a crow clutching a skull. The bar was a dive, all chipped wood and flickering lights, the kind of place where deals were made and questions weren't asked. Elena wore a leather jacket and jeans, her hair pulled into a messy bun to ditch the cop vibe. Javier, in a flannel and baseball cap, looked like any other guy blowing off steam. Marcus was already inside, nursing a beer at a corner table, his eyes scanning the crowd. Elena slid onto a bar stool, ordering a tequila she had no intention of drinking. Javier leaned against the counter beside her, pretending to check his phone. The bar was half full, a mix of locals, tourists, and shifty. Types who kept their heads down. A jukebox blared narco corridos, masking conversations. Elena's gaze flicked to the door every few seconds, waiting for Raul. "You sure about this?" Javier muttered, his voice barely audible over the music. "Nope," Elena admitted. "But we're here now." 10 minutes later, the door swung open, and Raul Vargas walked in. He was unmistakable, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar slicing through his left eyebrow. The photo from Sofia's last night had burned his face into Elena's memory. He wore a black shirt and aviators despite the dim lighting, and moved with the confidence of someone who knew he was untouchable. A woman trailed behind him, her head bowed, clutching a small bag. She was young, maybe 18, her expression blank but her eyes darting nervously. Another victim. Elena's fists clenched under the bar. She forced herself to stay still, sipping her tequila to blend in. Raoul approached a table in the back where a man in a cheap suit waited, a briefcase at his feet. The handoff. Raoul sat. Sliding a manila envelope across the table, the man opened it, nodded, and passed the briefcase to Raoul, who didn't bother checking it. The girl stood silently, her hands trembling. "We need to move," Elena whispered. "Not yet," Javier hissed. "We don't know who else is here." But Elena's instincts screamed otherwise. If they waited, the girl would disappear, just like Sophia. She caught Marcus's eye across the room, giving him a subtle nod. He set down his beer and stood, stretching like he was just heading to the bathroom. As he passed Raoul's table, he accidentally bumped into the man in the suit, spilling his drink. "Watch it, man," the suit snapped, standing. Marcus played drunk, slurring an apology, drawing every eye in the bar. It was the distraction Elena needed. She slipped off her stool, weaving through the crowd toward the girl. Javier cursed under his breath, but followed, covering her flank. Elena reached the girl, keeping her voice low. "Hey, you okay? Come with me, quick!" The girl's eyes widened, fear flashing across her face. "No, I can't." "You can," Elena said firmly, her hand gentle but insistent on the girl's arm. "I'm here to help." Raoul's head snapped toward them, his aviators glinting. "Who the hell are you?" he growled, standing. Elena didn't answer. She pulled the girl toward the exit, Javier right behind her. Raoul shouted something in Spanish, and two men from a nearby table stood, blocking the door. The bar went quiet. The jukebox's wail the only sound. Marcus was still arguing with the suit, but his hand hovered near the concealed pistol under his jacket. "Border Patrol," Elena said, loud enough for the room to hear, flashing her badge. It was a gamble. Her authority meant nothing here. But it bought a second of hesitation. She used it, shoving past the men at the door, dragging the girl into the alley. The night air hit like a slap. Elena ran, the girl stumbling beside her, Javier covering their rear. Footsteps pounded behind them, Raoul and his men gaining fast. Marcus burst out of the bar, firing a warning shot into the air. The crack echoed, scattering a group of street vendors nearby. "Get to the car!" Javier yelled. They rounded a corner, the Civic in sight. Elena shoved the girl into the back seat, diving in after her. Javier took the wheel, Marcus piling into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life as Raoul's men reached the alley, one of them drawing a gun. Javier floored it, tires screeching as they sped toward the border. Elena's heart pounded, but she focused on the girl, who was sobbing now, her hands covering her face. "You're safe," Elena said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. "What's your name?" "Clara," the girl whispered. They said I'd be a dancer in L.A., Elena's jaw tightened. The same lie they'd fed Sophia. "You're not going anywhere they want. I promise." Javier glanced in the rearview mirror. "We've got company." A black SUV was tailing them, its headlights glaring. Elena cursed. They were still a mile from the border, and Tijuana's streets weren't exactly a safe haven. Marcus leaned out the window, firing another shot, but the SUV didn't slow. "Hold on." Javier swerved into a side street, narrowly avoiding a fruit cart. The SUV followed, clipping a parked car. Clara screamed, clinging to Elena. "We can't outrun them," Marcus said, reloading. "We need to lose them before the border." Elena's mind raced. The border checkpoint would be a death trap. Raoul's crew wouldn't hesitate to open fire, and CBP officers would be caught in the crossfire. She scanned the street, spotting a crowded mercado up ahead, its stalls packed with late-night shoppers. "Javier, the market. We can ditch the car and blend in." He nodded, yanking the wheel. The Civic skidded into the mercado's entrance, scattering pedestrians. Javier killed the engine, and they scrambled out, Elena pulling Clara along. The SUV screeched to a stop behind them, Raoul's men spilling out. The market was a maze of tarps and twinkling lights, the air thick with the smell of grilled meat and diesel. Elena wove through the crowd, keeping Clara close. Javier and Marcus split off, drawing the pursuers in different directions. Clara's breathing was ragged, but she kept up, her fear giving her speed. They ducked behind a stall selling knockoff sneakers, crouching low. Elena peered through a gap in the tarp. Raoul was there, barking orders, his men fanning out. He was close, too close. Elena's hand rested on her Glock, but a shootout here would be a bloodbath. Clara, she whispered, did they say where they were taking you? Any names, places? Clara shook her head, tears streaming. Just Las Vegas. They said I'd work at a club. The man in the suit, he called it the Oasis. Elena's blood ran cold. The Oasis was a high-end casino owned by Vincent Moretti, the Vegas mogul tied to the fixer in the warehouse footage. The pieces were falling into place. Cass's network wasn't just smuggling people, it was supplying them to elite clients. Laundering the profits through places like the Oasis. A shadow loomed over the stall. Elena spun, raising her gun, but it was Javier. "Coast is clear for now," he said, panting. "Marcus drew them off. We need to move." They slipped through the market, reaching a side street where Marcus was waiting with a stolen motorcycle. "Get Clara to the border," Elena told him. "Javier and I will cover you." Marcus nodded, helping Clara onto the bike. "Stay alive, Marquez." "Always do," she said, though the weight of the night pressed on her. As Marcus roared off, Elena and Javier headed for the border on foot, sticking to back alleys. They crossed without incident, flashing their badges to bypass the lines. By the time they reached the San Diego station, Marcus had delivered Clara to a safe house, where a victim advocate was waiting. But the victory felt hollow. Raul was still out there, and Cass was untouched. Worse, the email and Sophia's photo gnawed at Elena. Someone inside the agency was leaking, someone close. The next morning, Elena sat in Holt's office, debriefing him on the Tijuana op. She left out the off-the-books part, framing it as a spontaneous pursuit based on new intel. Holt wasn't buying it. "You're lucky you didn't start." "An international incident," he growled, tossing a file onto his desk. "But you got Clara, and that's something. Her statement matches Maria and Anna's. Delgado's people are running a tight ship. Fake contracts, encrypted apps, even a damn script for the girls to recite if they get caught." Elena leaned forward. "Clara mentioned the Oasis in Vegas. It's tied to Vincent Moretti. We've got footage of his fixer meeting someone who could be Cass. We need to follow that lead." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Moretti's untouchable. He's got half the Vegas PD in his pocket and senators on speed dial. You go poking around his casino, you'd better have ironclad evidence." Then, "Let me go undercover," Elena said. "I can pose as a buyer, get close to the fixer. If we can tie him to Cass, we've got her." Holt rubbed his chin, silent for a long moment. "You're playing with fire, Marquez. But fine. I'll get you a cover ID and a contact in Vegas. But you're not going alone. Ruiz goes with you. And you check in every 24 hours. One misstep and I'm pulling you." "Understood," Elena said, hiding her relief. She'd expected a flat no. As she left Holt's office, Javier was waiting in the hall, his expression grim. "You didn't tell him about the email," he said. Elena shook her head. "Not until I know who's leaking. That photo of Sophia didn't come from nowhere." Javier's jaw tightened. "You think it's someone here?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I'm not taking chances. From now on, we trust no one." Across the border, in a Tijuana penthouse overlooking the city, Cass Delgado sipped a glass of red wine, her gaze fixed on a tablet streaming live footage from the Oasis. The casino's VIP room was packed, high rollers throwing around money. Like confetti, her money in a way, every girl she supplied to Moretti's clubs brought in a cut, laundered through slot machines and poker tables. It was a perfect system, until Elena Marquez started tearing at its seams. Raul stood by the window, his face bruised from the market chase. "She was in TJ last night," he said. "Took the girl right under my nose. She's not just some cop, Cass. She's hunting you." Cass set down her glass, her smile cold. "Good, let her hunt. It'll make crushing her that much sweeter." She opened her encrypted app, typing a message to her mole in the border patrol. "Marquez is headed to Vegas. Make sure she doesn't come back." Cass had learned early that power wasn't about strength. It was about control. She'd grown up in Tijuana's slums, daughter of a seamstress and a drunk who'd left when she was 6. By 15, she was running errands for a local coyote, learning the trade. By 20, she'd taken over his operation, outsmarting men twice her age. Trafficking wasn't her dream. It was her ladder out of hell. Every girl she moved was a rung, every dollar a brick in her empire. She didn't hate the girls, she just didn't care. Survival was a zero-sum game, and Cass always won. But Marquez was different. The agent's file, hacked from a CBP database, told a story: El Paso roots, a cousin lost to trafficking, a stubborn streak that had earned her scars and commendations. Cass respected that kind of fire, but respect didn't mean mercy. Marquez was a threat, and threats were eliminated. "Raul," she said, standing, "get me everything on the Oasis. If Marquez shows up, I want to know before she steps foot in the door." Raul nodded, but his eyes held a flicker of doubt. "You sure you want to play this close? We could cut and run, start fresh somewhere." "Else," Cass laughed, sharp and bitter. "Run? I built this from nothing. I'm not giving it up for some badge with a grudge. We end this in Vegas one way or another." Elena spent the next day preparing for Vegas. Her cover was solid: Elena Morales, a recruiter for a fictional LA modeling agency, looking to source talent from Moretti's clubs. Javier would pose as her driver, keeping an eye on the fixer, a man named Tony Salazar. The Vegas contact, a DEA agent named Kim Nguyen, would provide local intel and backup. It was a tight plan, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night she visited the safe house where Clara, Maria, and Ana were staying. The girls were fragile but healing, their stories spilling out in group therapy sessions. Clara, the youngest, clung to a sketchbook drawing pictures of her village in Guatemala. When Elena sat beside her, Clara showed her a drawing of a bird, its wings spread wide. "It's a quetzal," Clara said softly. "My abuela said they mean freedom." Elena smiled, though her chest ached. "You'll fly again, Clara, I promise." But as she left the safe house, a black sedan idled across the street, its windows tinted. Elena's hand went to her gun, but the car pulled away, disappearing into the San Diego night. A warning or paranoia? She couldn't tell anymore. Vegas was waiting, and with it, the heart of Cass's empire. Elena didn't know if she'd find Sophia's ghost there or her own end, but she was ready to face it, whatever the cost. The Las Vegas Strip glittered like a fever dream, a neon jungle of casinos, billboards, and tourists drunk on possibility. Elena Marquez sat in the back seat of a rented SUV, her reflection flickering in the tinted window as Javier Ruiz navigated through the Friday night chaos. It was May 14th, 2025, and the Oasis loomed ahead, its golden facade a beacon of excess. The casino was Vincent Moretti's crown jewel, a playground for the elite, and if Elena's intel was right, a hub for Cas Delgado's trafficking empire. Elena adjusted her earpiece, her cover ID tucked into a sleek clutch. Elena Morales, talent scout for a non-existent LA modeling agency. Her black dress and heels were a far cry from her border patrol gear, but the Glock strapped to her thigh was a familiar weight. Javier, posing as her driver, wore a cheap suit and a scowl, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror for tails. Their DEA contact, Kim Nguyen, was already inside the Oasis, blending in as a high roller. The plan was simple: make contact with Tony Salazar, Moretti's fixer, and pose as buyers interested in special talent. If Salazar took the bait, they'd have a direct line to Cass's operation. "Nguyen's in position," Javier said, his voice low. "She's got eyes on Salazar in the VIP lounge. You sure you're ready for this?" Elena forced a smile. "Ready as I'll ever be," but she wasn't. The black sedan outside the safe house last night had left her on edge, and the anonymous email with Sophia's photo still burned in her mind. Someone was feeding Cass intel, and the list of suspects was short. Holt, Javier, Marcus, or someone higher up the chain. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when Clara, Maria, Ana, and countless others were counting on her. Javier pulled into the Oasis's valet lane, handing the keys to a kid in a red vest. "Stay sharp," he muttered, adjusting his own earpiece. "This place is a snake pit." Elena stepped out, the desert heat hitting her like a wave. The casino's entrance was a spectacle. Marble columns, a fountain shaped like a phoenix, and a crowd buzzing with energy. She slipped into character, striding through the doors with the confidence of someone who belonged. Slot machines chimed, cocktail waitresses glided past, and the air smelled of money and desperation. Kim Nguyen was easy to spot in the VIP lounge, a roped-off enclave of leather booths and crystal chandeliers. She was mid-30s, sharp-eyed, with a pixie cut and a sequined dress that screamed wealth. She sat at a blackjack table, laughing with a group of suits, but her glance toward Elena was all business. Tony Salazar was at the bar, a wiry man in his 40s with slicked-back hair and a Rolex that caught the light. He was nursing a whiskey, his attention on a tablet, oblivious to the game unfolding around him. Elena approached the bar, ordering a martini she wouldn't drink. "Mr. Salazar," she said, her voice smooth, professional, "I'm Elena Morales, Premier Talent Agency. My associate spoke highly of your connections." Salazar's eyes flicked up, appraising her. "Did they now?" His voice was smooth, with a faint Jersey accent. "And who might this associate be?" "Raul Vargas," Elena said, dropping the name like a grenade. It was a risk. Raul was Cass's enforcer, not hers, but the Tijuana chase had put him on edge. If Salazar was in deep with Cass, he'd react. He did. His fingers tightened on his glass, just for a second. "Raul's a busy man. What's your interest?" Elena leaned in, lowering her voice. "My clients are looking for unique talent, young, fresh, willing to work. Off the books. I hear you're the man to make that happen." Salazar studied her, then smirked. "You don't beat around the bush, do you, Ms. Morales? All right, let's talk. But not here." He nodded toward a hallway marked "Private." "My office." Elena's pulse quickened, but she kept her face neutral. "Lead the way." As they moved, she caught Kim's eye, signaling her to stay close. Javier was somewhere in the casino, monitoring the feeds through a hacked security camera. The hallway was quieter, lined with gold-frame mirrors and a carpet that swallowed sound. Salazar's office was at the end, a sleek space with a mahogany desk, a safe in the corner, and a view of the Strip's chaos. "Sit," Salazar said, gesturing to a leather chair. He didn't sit, instead pacing to the window. "Raul, didn't mention you. That's a problem." Elena crossed her legs, playing the part. "Raul's not the talkative type, but he said you could deliver. My clients are impatient, Tony. They're willing to pay top dollar, but they need product soon. Can you make that happen, or am I wasting my time?" Salazar's smirk returned, but there was a glint of suspicion in his eyes. "You're bold, I'll give you that. All right, let's say I can deliver. What's the order? Age, look, quantity?" Elena's stomach churned, but she kept her voice steady. 10 girls, 16 to 20, Central American or Eastern European. Exotic, but not too polished. They need to be compliant," he nodded, pulling out his tablet. "I can do 8 by next week. Guatemala, Honduras, maybe a couple from Ukraine. Compliance isn't an issue. We handle that in-house. Cost is $20K a head, half up front." Elena's heart pounded. This was it. Hard evidence of trafficking tied to Moretti's operation. She needed to keep him talking, get specifics. "Where's the handoff? I'm not wiring money blind." Salazar hesitated, his fingers hovering over the tablet. "You ask a lot of questions, Ms. Morales." "Due diligence," she said, forcing a smile. "My clients don't like surprises." He studied her, then tapped the tablet. "Handoff's in a warehouse outside Henderson. I'll send coordinates once the deposit clears. But I need something from you first, a gesture of good faith." Elena's instincts screamed trap. "Name it." "Raul's been unreliable lately," Salazar said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "I need to know you're not working with anyone who might complicate things. Say, a certain border patrol agent sniffing around." Elena's blood ran cold. He knew, or he suspected. She laughed, keeping her voice light. "You think I'm a cop? Tony, I'm just here to make money, same as you." "Maybe," he said, stepping closer, "but I don't take chances. Let's call Raul, clear this up." Before she could respond, her earpiece crackled, Javier's voice urgent. "Elena, get out. Security's moving in. Someone tipped them off. Salazar's. Hand shot to his desk, grabbing a pistol from a drawer. Who's in your ear? He snarled, leveling the gun at her. Elena dove behind the chair as Salazar fired, the shot splintering the desk. She drew her Glock, returning fire, aiming low to wound, not kill. Salazar grunted, clutching his leg, and scrambled for the door. Elena lunged after him, but the hallway was already filling with security, big guys in suits moving fast. Javier, I'm compromised, she shouted into her earpiece, sprinting toward a fire exit. Alarms blared, lights flashing red. She hit the exit door, bursting onto a metal staircase overlooking a service alley. Footsteps pounded behind her. Kim Nguyen's voice cut through the chaos. Elena, head for the east lot. I've got a car. Elena vaulted over the railing, landing hard on the asphalt. She ran, weaving through dumpsters and parked trucks, her dress tearing at the hem. The east lot was a sea of cars, but Kim's signal, a flashing headlight, guided her. She dove into the passenger seat of a black sedan, Kim peeling out before the door was fully closed. Salazar's hit, but he's alive, Elena panted, checking her clip. He's onto us. Someone's feeding them intel. Kim's jaw tightened, her eyes on the road. Yeah, and it's not just Salazar. My team picked up chatter. Cass Delgado's in Vegas. She's running this show herself. Elena's mind raced. Cass, here? It was a chance to end this, but the leak was a bigger problem. We need to regroup, figure out who's dirty. Already on it, Kim said, handing her a burner phone. I've got a safe house off the strip. Javier's en route, but Elena, whoever's selling you out, they're close, real close. The safe house was a nondescript condo in a quiet Vegas suburb, its blinds drawn and furniture sparse. Javier arrived an hour later, his face grim. Security locked down the oasis after you bolted, he said, tossing his jacket onto a chair. Salazar's in the wind, probably holed up with Moretti's people. Elena paced, her mind a tangle of clues and suspicions. Salazar knew about me, Javi, not just my cover. He mentioned Border Patrol. That email, the photo of Sofia. It's someone in our circle. Javier's eyes narrowed. You're saying Holt, Marcus, me? I don't know, she snapped, then softened. I want to trust you, but I can't take chances. Not with Cass this close. Kim, working on a laptop in the corner, looked up. I've got something. My team pulled financials on Delgado Immigration Services. It's a front like we thought, but there's a second layer. Shell companies tied to a Chicago real estate firm. They're moving girls through construction sites, using them for labor and other services. Elena's stomach twisted. The scale of Cass's operation was monstrous, and Vegas was just one piece. What about the Oasis? Any hard ties to Cass? Not yet, Kim admitted, but Salazar's tablet logged into an encrypted server before you shot him. If we can crack it, we've got names, dates, maybe even Cass's location. Then, we need that tablet, Elena said. Where's it now? Kim hesitated. Still at the Oasis in evidence lockup. Moretti's got enough pull to keep the cops out, but I know someone who can get us in. A journalist, Rachel Kwan. She's been digging into Moretti for years, knows his security inside out. A journalist? Javier said, skeptical. She'll blow this wide open. She won't, Kim said. Rachel's sister was trafficked 5 years ago. Never found. She's got skin in this game, same as you, Elena. Elena nodded, a flicker of hope cutting through her doubt. Set it up. We move tonight. Rachel Kwan met them at a 24-hour diner off Fremont Street, her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail, her laptop bag slung over one shoulder. She was in her late 20s with a sharp gaze and a no-nonsense vibe. Kim says you're after Cass. Delgado, she said, sliding into the booth. I've been tracking her for months. She's smart. Uses proxies, burner accounts, even AI to scrub her digital footprint, but she's not invisible. What do you know about the Oasis? Elena asked, keeping her voice low. Rachel pulled out her laptop, opening a folder of files. Moretti's been laundering money through the casino for a decade. Drugs, guns, girls. Cass is his new favorite supplier. She delivers high-value product. Young, pretty, broken in just enough to keep clients happy. The Oasis's VIP rooms aren't just for gambling, they're showrooms. Elena's fists clenched under the table. We need Salazar's tablet. Can you get us into the casino's security wing? Rachel smirked. I've got a source, a disgruntled ex-guard who owes me. He'll get us in, but it's a one-shot deal. Moretti's tightening up after your stunt. What's your price? Javier asked, blunt. Rachel's smirk faded. Find my sister, or at least tell me what happened to her. Her name was Lily. She was 19, taken from a mall in Reno. Cass's people were spotted in the area. Elena met her gaze, seeing the same pain she carried for Sophia. I can't promise we'll find her, but I'll do everything I can. Rachel nodded, closing her laptop. Good enough. Meet me at the casino's service entrance. 2 a.m. Bring your A-game. The Oasis's service entrance was a nondescript door behind a dumpster, guarded by a single camera. Rachel's source, a wiry man named Eddie, disabled the feed long enough for them to slip inside. The security wing was a maze of concrete halls lit by flickering fluorescence. Eddie led them to the evidence lockup, a steel door with a keypad. You've got 5 minutes before the next patrol, he whispered, handing Rachel a keycard. Inside, the lockup was a clutter of shelves, drugs, weapons, stacks of cash. Salazar's tablet was in a plastic bag tagged with his name. Kim grabbed it, tucking it into her jacket. Let's move. But as they turned to leave, Elena's earpiece crackled. Marcus Tate's voice panicked. Elena, it's a setup. Holt's dirty. He's been feeding Cass your moves. He's got men coming your way. Elena's world tilted. Holt, her supervisor, the man who'd signed off on her Vegas op. It made sense. The email, the photo, Salazar's suspicion. He'd been playing her from the start. Javier, Kim, we're blown, she said, drawing her Glock. Rachel, get that tablet out of here. Rachel didn't hesitate, sprinting for the exit with Kim. Javier covered the door, his own gun raised. Holt, he muttered. That son of a... The door burst open and 3 men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn. Not casino security, Holt's private muscle, bought and paid for. Elena fired first, dropping one with a shot to the knee. Javier took out another, but the third tackled him, sending his gun skidding across the floor. Elena dove behind a shelf, bullets ripping through the air. She aimed, firing twice, and the third man fell, clutching his shoulder. But more footsteps echoed in the hall. Reinforcements. Javier, we're out of time, she shouted, hauling him up. They ran, weaving through the maze, the tablet still. With Kim and Rachel somewhere ahead, the service entrance was in sight when a figure stepped into the light. Daniel Holt, his service pistol aimed at Elena's chest. Marquez, he said, his voice calm but cold. You should have stayed. In San Diego! Elena froze, her gun trained on him. Javier was beside her, breathing hard, his own weapon raised. Why, Holt, she demanded. How much is Cass paying you? Holt's lip curled. Enough to retire? You think I'd spend 20 years busting my ass for a pension? Cass offered me a way out. You were just collateral. You sold out Sophia, Elena said, her voice shaking with rage. You sold out Clara Maria, Anna. Shut up, Holt snapped, his gun steady. Drop your weapon or you're done. Javier shifted, drawing Holt's attention for a split second. It was enough. Elena fired, the shot grazing Holt's arm. He staggered, firing wildly, and Javier tackled him, pinning him to the ground. Elena kicked his gun away, cuffing his wrists with zip ties from her pocket. You're finished, she told him, her voice steel. And so is Cass. But Holt laughed, blood dripping from his lip. You think she's here? She's already gone, Marquez. You're chasing a ghost. Kim and Rachel made it to the safe house with the tablet, where a DEA tech was already cracking its encryption. Javier and Elena arrived an hour later, Holt in custody, handed over to Kim's team. The betrayal cut deep, but there was no time to dwell. The tablet's data was a goldmine. Names, dates, drop points across the U.S. and Mexico. Cass's network was bigger than they'd imagined, stretching from Tijuana to Chicago, with the Oasis as its financial hub. One name stood out, Lily Kwan, Rachel's sister. She'd been trafficked through the Oasis 2 years ago, sold to a private client in Chicago. Rachel's face was stone as she read the file, but her hands trembled. "Find her," she told Elena. "Please." Elena nodded, though the weight of it was crushing. Sophia, Lily, Clara, the ghosts were piling up, and Cass was still out there. The tech looked up from his laptop. "We've got a hit. Cass Delgado's. Phone pinged a tower in Henderson near the warehouse Salazar mentioned. She's meeting someone tonight." Elena's heart raced. This was it, the chance to end it. But Holt's words echoed. "You're chasing a ghost." Cass was always one step ahead, and the leak might not stop with Holt. Still, Elena had no choice. She'd come too far to turn back. "Gear up," she told Javier and Kim. "We're hitting that warehouse. Rachel, you're with us. This ends tonight." As they loaded their weapons and checked their vests, Elena's phone buzzed. Another. Anonymous email, no subject. Just a single line. "See you in Henderson, Agent Marquez." The Henderson warehouse sat on the edge of Las Vegas's sprawl, a hulking shadow against the desert sky. It was May 15th, 2025, just past midnight, and the air was thick with the promise of a storm. Elena Marquez crouched behind a rusted shipping container, her Glock steady in her hands, her breath controlled, despite the adrenaline flooding her veins. Javier Ruiz was to her left, his rifle trained on the warehouse's loading dock. Kim Nguyen and Rachel Kwan flanked the perimeter, their radios silent but active. A DEA tactical team, called in after Holt's betrayal, waited a quarter mile, back ready to move on Elena's signal. The anonymous email, "See you in Henderson, Agent Marquez," had been a dare, and Elena had taken it. Cass Delgado was inside that warehouse, or so the tablet's decrypted data suggested. A meeting with a high-value client, a final handoff before Cass vanished into the wind. Elena's team had one shot to take her down, to break the chain that had stolen Sophia, Lily, Clara, and countless others. Failure wasn't an option. "Eyes on the dock," Javier whispered, his scope catching movement. "2 guards, armed. No sign of Cass yet." Elena adjusted her night vision goggles, the green-tinted world revealing the warehouse's defenses. Cameras on the roof, a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, and a white van parked near the entrance, its plates matching the one impounded. In San Diego, the setup screamed Cass, calculated, efficient, and deadly. Kim's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Thermal shows 12 heat signatures inside, 8 in a central room, 4 moving, could be victims and handlers." "Any sign of the client?" Elena asked. "Negative," Kim replied, "but there's a private jet idling at a nearby airstrip." "Whoever they are, they're ready to bolt." Elena's jaw tightened. Cass was slipping away, just like Holt had warned, but she wasn't a ghost, not tonight. "Tactical team, hold position," Elena said into her radio. "We're going in." "Soft. If it goes loud, you're our cavalry." "Copy," the team leader responded. "You've got 10 minutes before we move." Elena nodded to Javier. "Let's do this." They moved like shadows, cutting through a gap in the fence Rachel had scouted. Kim disabled the cameras with a signal jammer, while Rachel planted a tracking device on the van in case it rolled out. The guards at the dock were distracted, sharing a cigarette, unaware of the noose tightening around them. Elena and Javier took them down silently, zip-tying their wrists and gagging them with duct tape. The dock door was unlocked, a careless mistake or a trap. Inside the warehouse was a cavern of crates and machinery, the air heavy with dust and oil. Dim fluorescents cast long shadows, and the faint sound of voices echoed from deeper within. Elena led the way, her team fanning. Out to cover the angles, a narrow hallway led to a central chamber, its door ajar. Through the gap, Elena saw what Kim's thermal had picked up. 8 young women, some as young as 14, huddled on the floor, their wrists bound. 2 men stood guard, AK-47s slung over their shoulders. A third figure, a woman, paced the room, her back to the door. Cass. Elena's heart pounded, memories of Sophia flashing through her mind, her cousin's laugh, her dreams, her face in that Tijuana photo. This was it. She signaled Javier to take the left guard, Kim the right. Rachel stayed back, her camera recording for evidence. On Elena's count, they moved. "U.S. Border Patrol," Elena shouted, bursting through the door, gun raised. "Drop. Your weapons!" The guards froze, caught off guard, but Cass spun, her eyes locking onto Elena's. She was younger than Elena expected, mid-20s, with sharp features and a calm that bordered on eerie. Her tailored jacket and floral perfume matched the victim's descriptions, but it was her gaze, cold, calculating, almost amused, that sent a chill down Elena's spine. "Agent Marquez," Cass said, her voice smooth, "you're persistent." The guards hesitated, their rifles half raised. Javier and Kim fired warning shots, splintering the crates behind them. "Down now!" Javier barked. The guards complied, dropping their weapons and hitting the floor. Elena kept her gun on Cass, stepping closer. "Cassandra Delgado, you're under arrest. Hands behind your head." Cass smiled, unmoving. "You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes." "Shut up and move," Elena snapped, but Cass's words gnawed at her. The jet at the airstrip, the client, they were missing something. Before Cass could respond, a side door burst open, and Raul Vargas charged in, a pistol in each hand. "Nobody moves!" he roared, firing a shot that grazed Kim's arm. She cursed, diving behind a crate, while Javier returned fire, forcing Raul to take cover. The room erupted into chaos. The bound girls screamed, scrambling for cover. Elena tackled Cass, pinning her to the ground, but Cass fought like a cornered animal, clawing at Elena's face. "You can't stop this!" Cass hissed, her nails drawing blood. "You think I'm the head? I'm just a cog!" Elena slammed Cass's head into the floor, dazing her, and cuffed her wrists. "Tell it to the judge." Raul was still firing, pinned down by Javier and Kim. Rachel, against orders, darted forward, helping the girls untie their ropes and guiding them toward the hallway. "Go, go!" she shouted, her voice steady despite the gunfire. Elena dragged Cass to her feet, using her as a shield as she moved toward Raul. "Raul, it's over! Drop the guns or you're done!" He laughed, a bitter sound. "You think I'm scared of you? Cass owns me, same as she owns half this city." But his bravado cracked as the DEA tactical team breached the warehouse, floodlights cutting through the darkness. "Federal agents! Weapons down!" their leader bellowed. His team spreading out, rifles trained. Raul hesitated, then threw down his pistols, raising his hands. The fight was over, or so Elena thought. As the tactical team secured the room, a low rumble shook the warehouse. Elena spun, her eyes darting to the ceiling. Dust rained down, and the rumble grew louder. A helicopter hovering above. The client. "They were making their escape! Kim, the jet!" Elena shouted, shoving Cass into Javier's custody. "They're bailing!" Kim, clutching her bleeding arm, nodded. "I'm on it. Rachel, with me!" Elena sprinted for the dock where the van was still parked. The tracking device Rachel had planted was their only hope. She jumped into the driver's seat, hot-wiring the ignition as Javier secured Cass and Raul in the tactical team's custody. The van roared to life, and Elena floored it, following the signal to the airstrip a mile away. The desert road was a blur, the van's tires kicking up sand. The airstrip came into view, a private jet taxiing toward the runway, its lights glaring. Kim's sedan was already there, skidding to a stop near the fence. Rachel and Kim leapt out, Kim aiming her rifle at the jet's engines. "DEA, stop the plane!" Kim shouted, firing a warning shot. The jet didn't slow, its engines screaming as it prepared for takeoff. Elena slammed the van into park, grabbing a flare gun from the glove box. She ran toward the runway, firing a flare into the jet's path. The pilot swerved, the jet veering off the tarmac and into the sand, its nose digging into the ground. The engines whined, then died. Kim and Rachel stormed the jet, weapons raised. Elena followed, her Glock ready. The cabin door opened, and a man stepped out, hands raised. He was older, 60s, with silver hair and a tailored suit, Vincent Moretti, the Oasis's owner. "You're making a mistake," Moretti said, his voice calm. "I'm just a businessman." "Save it," Elena snapped, cuffing him. Inside the jet, they found 2 more girls, bound and gagged, and a laptop open to an encrypted auction site. The client wasn't just Moretti. He was a middleman, selling to buyers across the globe. Kim secured the girls, her face grim. "This is bigger than Cass," she said. "We've got names, accounts, enough to take down half the network." Elena nodded, but her focus was on the laptop. She scrolled through the auction logs, her heart stopping at one entry. Sofia Marquez, 19 El Paso TX, sold 2018 Chicago. A photo accompanied it. Sofia, her eyes hollow, her smile gone. Elena's knees buckled, but she caught herself. Sofia was gone, or at least the girl she'd known was. But the fight wasn't over. She forwarded the data to Kim's team, ensuring it would reach the right hands. Back at the warehouse, Cass sat in the back of a DEA van, her hands cuffed, her calm facade cracking. Elena approached, her face bruised and bloodied from the fight. "Why Sofia?" she asked, her voice low. "Why her?" Cass met her gaze, no smile this time. "I didn't know her name. She was just product. You think I wanted this life? I was 15 when they took me, Marquez. I clawed my way up, same as you. The only difference is I stopped pretending the world's fair." Elena wanted to hate her, to see a monster, but Cass was a mirror, broken, hardened, shaped by a world that chewed up the vulnerable. "You could have stopped," Elena said. "You could have walked away," Cass laughed, bitter. "And gone where? Back to the slums? You don't get it. There's no out. Not for me." Elena turned away, unable to stomach more. Cass would face justice, but it wouldn't erase the scars. Hers, Sofia's, or the countless others. The next week was a blur of debriefs and paperwork. The tablet's data led to raids across the U.S. and Mexico, dismantling Cass's network. Piece by piece, Moretti's arrest sent shockwaves through Vegas, his casino shuttered, his allies scrambling. Raul turned state's evidence, spilling secrets in exchange for a lighter sentence. Holt was indicted, his betrayal a stain on the agency. Elena visited the safe house where Clara, Maria, and Anna were staying. Clara ran to her, clutching her sketchbook. "I drew you," she said, showing a picture of a woman with a badge, a quetzal bird soaring above her. Elena smiled, her throat tight. "It's beautiful, Clara." Rachel Kwan was there too, her eyes red from reading Lily's file. The data suggested Lily was still alive, working in a Chicago sweatshop. Elena promised to help find her, a vow she intended to keep. That night, Elena sat alone in her San Diego apartment, Sofia's photo on the table. The Chicago lead was a long shot, but it was something. She'd failed Sofia once, but she wouldn't again. Not for Lily, not for anyone. The fight wasn't over. Cass's words echoed. "You have no idea how deep this goes." The network was wounded, not dead, and others would rise to fill the void. But Elena was ready. She'd cut this chain, link by link, until the ghosts could rest. She picked up her phone, dialing Kim. "Tell the Chicago team I'm in. Let's finish this." The desert outside Henderson was quiet again, the warehouse a silent tomb. But in San Diego, Vegas, Chicago, and beyond, the ripples of that night spread. A chain was breaking, one life at a time, and Elena Marquez would see it through to the end.